Hello, I'm Laura Knights, CEO of Knights Consulting, creator of BlackWomanLeading.com, and the host of Black Woman Leading, the podcast. This podcast amplifies the needs and experiences of Black women leaders in the workplace with a holistic focus on three core areas: leadership development, mental wellness, and relationship management. Our ultimate aim is to help Black women learn, heal, and grow in their leadership capacity. Hey there, before we jump into the next podcast episode, I want to share two quick announcements with you. We are just weeks away from the 2025 Black Woman Leading Live Conference and Retreat. It's taking place May 27th through the 30th, 2025 in Virginia Beach. Now, this is our third annual event, and if you haven't heard, this event is the premier leadership development conference to help Black women learn, heal, and grow in their leadership capacity. Now, this is not just an event, it's an experience designed by Black women for Black women. Listen, the Black Woman Leading team, along with our dynamic guest experts that will be there, are going to help you do the hard work and the head work to clarify your career growth strategy, work on refining your leadership skills, and make a plan to tend to your mental wellness and self-care while you are doing all of that. So activities include workshops, panels, wellness breaks, laser coaching, networking, action planning, all of that. Past attendees have shared that this event has been transformative for them and has helped them make critical shifts to take not only their career, but their life to the next level. You need to be in the room, okay? So we have less than 25 seats left until we sell out. So make a plan to get there, talk to your employer, do whatever you got to do and be there with us, okay? You can get all the details and sign up, save your seat at www.bwlretreat.com. And my second announcement for you. Now our full podcast episodes are on YouTube. So you want to see my beautiful face, you want to see the face of our brilliant guests and catch the vibe as we're really having these dynamic conversations. Subscribe to the Black Woman Leading YouTube channel and you can watch the full episodes of the season there. So head on over there and subscribe. All right, welcome everyone. Super excited for today's episode. We're talking about mastering strategic networking with my girl, Daphne Valcin. Welcome to the podcast, Daphne.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. So this is a topic that never gets old. But before we jump into all the juicy details, let me give you the official about Daphne. So Daphne Valcin is a keynote speaker, trainer, and executive coach who has facilitated leadership and team development programming for over 400 individual clients and for over 200 organizational clients across 4 countries, y'all. She is the CEO and founder of Valcin Strategic Solutions, a boutique consulting firm focused on leadership and team development, and she has been featured in Forbes.com, Voyage magazine, and recognized as a 40 under 40 recipient for her professional work. As a results-driven corporate trainer and consultant, Daphne's clients have enhanced their team dynamics, increased productivity, enhanced their personal brand, and exponentially increased their annual revenue and moved up multiple levels in seniority. So she's got the receipts, y'all. She resides right outside of Atlanta, Georgia with her husband and her 2 little girls. And she looks forward to continuing to make an impact in her work. So y'all know we always have people here that know what they're talking about. So super excited that Daphne is here to share her expertise with us. All right. So how did I meet Daphne? I always have to say how I met our guest. We met through Victoria, right?
Yes, we did.
Shout out to Victoria. So I met Victoria in a business coaching program that I was in. Daphne ended up working with that same company. Victoria matched us up. And then we've had lunch and dinner a few times and have just really started to build a friendship around all the things that we have in common. And y'all, if you are attending the retreat and thinking about attending the retreat, Daphne is going to be diving even deeper, bringing her mastery and her expertise on this topic so you can see her live and in person doing her thing. So super excited, Daphne. And let's kind of jump into this topic. So why strategic networking? Why is something that we want to talk about? Well, how this topic came up is that one of the core themes of our retreat this year is around strategic communication and moving beyond just the basic skills, which are important, your active listening, your crafting your messaging, but realizing that there is a purpose in how you drive people, influence people, get buy-in, build rapport, through your communication. So we'll have lots of speakers bringing different aspects of that, not just the hard work, but the head work too. So I asked Daphne to come. We had a little brainstorming session, and I'm like, girl, you need to tell the people some stuff around this. So we thought it would be nice to give a little sneak peek on the podcast. So enough of that. Let's dive into it. Daphne, before we start talking about strategic networking, I always have to ask our guests to share a little bit about what the phrase Black woman leading means to you and a bit about your journey as a Black woman leading. Like how did you come to do this work?
Thank you so much, Laura, for that wonderful introduction and for all that you do with Black Women Leading. And for me, when I think of Black Women Leading, what came to mind just now was actually my journey as a young woman. So where I grew up in North Miami Beach, Florida. I didn't really see as many examples of Black women who were in leadership roles or even many Black women teachers at a certain point, or in businesses that we would kind of visit as I was growing up. So the idea of a Black woman leading, when I got to college, I was like, oh my goodness, like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I thought that in order to be seen as a leader or to be seen as a professional, that I needed to emulate white people who I saw who were very successful in the things that they were doing. And I think what I discovered when I got to college was I could be myself and just be a powerful version of myself. But I got to that through seeing other Black women lead and how they led, and them pulling me to the side and saying, I see in you this. I see this power in you. I'm going to put you in this position in order for you to be able to do that. And then in my journey for how I came to the work that I'm doing today, I had a lot of different mentors who pulled me to the side, who put me under their wing, who threw different challenges and opportunities my way for me to be able to be placed in positions of leadership or positions of influence that I didn't know I could do as a job. One quick story: in undergrad, I went into this woman's office, and this aligns with what we're talking about today. I wanted to volunteer with youth. And so I went in and I'm like, hi, my name is Daphne. I just wanted to talk to you about possibly volunteering with young people in your summer program. I know I met you at the career fair and just wanted to come and follow up. She started to ask me all these questions and I answered them. And she said, you have the job. And I was like, what job? Because I just wanted to volunteer in the summer. She said, you have the job.
You're hired.
This was your interview. And I'm like, what? So that actually was my first real college job. I worked my way up from a student assistant to an assistant director. But it's an example of when you come and you come with your A game and you come with your confidence. And my confidence was grounded in my passion for volunteering with youth.
Yeah.
Then you don't know what opportunities can come your way. So that fast forward, that was my first leadership position. I became assistant director. I had a number of different positions where I had the opportunity to influence and lead, and realized I had a real passion for tapping into the potential of people and their ideas. And that is what has led me here today to be able to do that now as my work. Doing coaching and training and consulting and program development. But it started there, people believing in me and pulling me up into different roles and positions.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, you already started to drop some gems when you said it was rooted in your passion, right? And that allowed you to come through more authentically. That wasn't even something I was going to talk about, but can you just share a little bit about that? Because I think that's a nugget right there for somebody.
Sure. So even as an adult, I'll go back to my DC days. So I lived in DC for about 7 years or so. And when I first started going to networking events, I for some reason didn't want to talk to anybody. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I'm gonna be on my phone, on the side, sitting somewhere and pretend I'm doing something important because I don't want to talk to anybody. And that was probably rooted in fear, right? That was in
Yeah.
fear, like, what if they judge me? These people look real fancy. I'm like, I'm not as fancy. I'm just little old me. But what I had to do was I was talking to my mom about this story yesterday. I had to have a position of being outwards facing as opposed to inwards facing,
Wow.
meaning I have a big passion for service always. Even when I was a little girl, somebody needed somebody to clean up after an event, put some stuff on a table, like call me, right? So I realized that I was at these events, not just for me to have a conversation that might impact me or that I might feel a certain way about, but I was at these events to serve, to be a
Yeah.
light, to be an encourager, to connect with people. That I'm all 100% about that life. So when I changed that around,
Wow.
I realized that there were other people who were nervous at these events who didn't really want to be there, but who had different intentions for why they were at the event. And me being able to be outwards facing, I started to get this huge reputation of being someone who was about social change, who was about professional development, who had different things that I was passionate about, who was confident, even though it was really just grounded in me wanting to serve.
Yeah.
So, whatever your passion is that you could bring to the table, maybe you love learning and that's what you want to do at this event with people who are in your sector. Maybe you're like me, you like serving. Maybe you're someone who usually is extroverted. Instead of thinking about maybe what could go wrong, think about your ability to walk in your gifts and your passion and
Yeah.
serve or teach or grow at an event.
Okay, so I got a little tingle. When I get a little tingle, honey, that means that we doing something. No, I love this because we're talking about taking focus off self and saying, what is the opportunity for me to contribute here? And I even think about like, I'm one of those people that I'm just like a people watcher. I'm very interested in the thinking patterns and the psychology around things. So you just gave me an idea, like, that love of learning or that curiosity about people, if that then becomes the focus for while I'm going to be at this engagement, then I'm already engaging because I'm asking questions and I'm telling me more about this. And wow, how was that experience? And it creates a different thing that is not about, am I looking like I should be here right now? Am I looking like I know what I'm talking about? Oh, love that. Love that. Okay. See,
Mm-hmm.
we're getting all ahead of ourselves because this is
Mm-hmm.
not. I wanted to start with this one question before we get into meat. Tell me about kind of your definition of strategic networking and kind of the importance of that to our career development.
Yes. When I think of strategic networking, I think of networking with intention. So you already, before you step foot into the event, know what your intention is for going. And I don't mean just your intention for maybe you need a new job, maybe you want to meet some more people in your
Yeah.
sector. It could be, what is it that's going to help me to be able to be the best version of myself when I'm at this event? How am I going to show up? Right. So, or at this, meeting with
Yeah.
whoever it is, or just randomly, in the airport, what is my intention as I'm interacting with this individual? And I would add that makes it a win-win too.
Yeah.
So I think really good strategic networking is about having the other person feel like they took value from connecting with you, in addition to you
That's good.
also feeling like you're taking value from whatever the connection is that you're having with others.
Yeah. And I feel like, in Black Woman Leading, we have a session in our mid-career program that's about relationship management and how do we build those relationships. And we talk about, from a cultural perspective, there's a framework and some research around cultural axiology, which is kind of the values based on a cultural group's kind of norms. And we know we're not a monolith, but Dr. Edwin Nichols, that's his research. But he talks about this kind of member orientation versus member object orientation. And member is, I'm interested in you as the individual as my primary focus. And he attributes a lot of that to, when we think about from a culture perspective, People from the diaspora, African American, Latino American, have more member cultural axiology. And then he talks about a member object axiology that's more about things that can be quantified. Things like, your degree? Where did you go to school? That
Yeah.
comes more from a Eurocentric standpoint. And there's no value judgment on either one, but we talk about how we may often be in settings that are member object, even though
Mhm.
our values orientation might be member. And how do we kind of move throughout these spaces? So what I'm hearing you say is, do you, right? If you're member, if you're concerned about the relationship and getting to know people, then lead with that, even if everyone else is asking where your degree is at first, because that's not the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm networking with people, but it's a common question, right? That
Mhm.
people ask. So I'm hearing you say, show up, do you, regardless of what other people are doing, because there's a contribution that you're bringing. Yes. Oh, okay, this is
Mhm.
good. So as we talk about this cultural aspect from your work, working with leaders all over the world, do you find there are any specific nuances or points of importance around this that may apply specifically to Black women, since that's the most of our audience, that might be good to raise up?
Yes, definitely. And I have some stats here
Mm-hmm.
too that I wanted to highlight as it relates to that. So, according to AnitaB.org, when it comes to women and who are Black women,
Mm-hmm.
companies with formal mentorship programs have 8.1 times more Black women in executive roles and 5.4 times in senior management positions, underscoring the value of mentorship and career progression, right? So, mentorship extremely important
Yeah.
to everybody, but especially I would say Black women. And then I also saw some research from LinkedIn that said that um, Latino and Black members' networks were 20% and 13% smaller than white members, but also
Mm.
Black women's average networks were 29% smaller than the national average and 38% smaller than white men's average networks. So I think here's my sneaky thought about
Yes.
um, uh, Black women and strategic networking. So I also saw research by Chief that shared that Black women tend to network more, actually, and I think maybe tend to feel like we need to network in order to get to where we need to go. But if I'm putting people in my shoes, and even some of the clients that I've had, some like could be 60 years old in a very high level position,
Yeah.
right? Or someone else who could be 30 years old, just kind of starting to build their network. They tend to have hesitation over networking because they're trying to figure out why. It's the member object thing you're talking about.
Yep.
Why would I go out and network? How do I do it in a way that's authentic? Because being myself is important.
Yeah.
Being myself is important may have come from the fact that we as Black women, again, we're not a monolith, but in general,
Yeah.
can feel like it can be tiring to not feel like you can be yourself, especially if you
Yeah.
have made it, in corporate America, you're successful. Maybe you're one of two Black people on your floor,
If that,
or in your department, or you are the one.
Yeah.
And so you feel like you have to be a certain way. And now someone has told you, you need to network, or you need to network up with a senior VP in your
Yeah.
company, or even the president. And so there's hesitation around, why would I form this relationship? Also, what authority do I have to form this relationship? I would say I'm of Haitian American descent, so I'm
Mhm.
Caribbean, and there's a big focus on authority. But I read in a book, I don't remember what book it was a tipping point, but they were saying that people who have wealth, which tend to be in general, right, majority
Mhm.
white people, have this feeling that they could ask for whatever they want from whoever they want to ask for it for. And the book says, like, entitlement, which can be positive if you feel like you can ask anybody for whatever it is you need, doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
Where I was raised was there are levels.
Yep.
I still to this day, if a woman seems much older than me, I might call her Miss So and so.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah.
was raised. In college, Professor So and so. They're like, call me Bill, Professor.
Yeah.
I had to work on that. But so there's the authority, like seeing that, well, I'm only at this role. What it would be too bold for me to reach out to this
Or
person.
disrespectful, some people even think.
Disrespectful,
Yes.
disrespectful. And how can I be myself and
Yes.
network? Because I don't need to, I have friends. Do I have to go out and network? And then do I have to tell this person what I need? So I think all those things, not
Yeah.
wanting to be fake,
Yeah.
all those things I'm hearing. And I think the one last thing that I want to call out is, what do you do when you don't feel, I guess, as safe in the networking conversation?
Exactly.
So when someone, their attitude, their facial expression, I had a client tell me today, every time she is interacting with a colleague, that colleague looks at her up and down. Colleague is a different race than hers, is a Black
Mm-hmm.
woman client. They look her up and down as if what she's wearing and who she is isn't good enough. This client is very accomplished. So my clients don't want to feel uncomfortable. Why would
Yeah.
I put myself in the position to feel uncomfortable
Yes.
in a networking conversation that I may not want to be in, or that I may want to leave? So what we do is, little by little, address each of those concerns
Yeah.
and figure out what is the resolution to move past that. But I think that's why we see maybe sometimes we may have a smaller network,
Mm-hmm.
but
And the
that we're still
resistance.
using
Yeah.
networking to move up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And that hesitance. And so I love this because you're hitting on so many different points, right? There's a couple of things here, right? There's this self-awareness, or your ability, really your emotional intelligence, your ability to read the room and realize some of these people judging me, which is probably accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's that piece. There's also this piece of like the cultural norms, the cultural scripts of. I remember having a coaching client who was a Black woman who we were strategizing in the session around how to maximize this 15-minute meeting she had with a higher level executive that, she needed to build a relationship with because they could really support her career. And I remember her being she was kind of an introvert already. She had 15 minutes on this man's calendar. And the 15 minutes was not like you just walking past his office and you pop in. It was scheduled. It was to check in. She didn't have a relationship with him, right? But he agreed, yeah, let's get together. And I remember us talking about, how could she, in this 15 minutes, bring up this opportunity within the company that she wanted to contribute her skills to. And she had a record in the company. She was a sales leader. She was a top of the leaderboard all the time. So this wasn't like, your name is getting the award every quarter kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her saying in the session, as we were preparing for this, she said, I don't know that man. How am I supposed to just go up in there and be asking him for what I want? Because that was the member orientation, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you ain't got time to be this man's best friend. And so she had about maybe a month until the appointment. It was because he was traveling. She had a month out. So I asked her to go and talk with one of her colleagues who was an ally, a white male, who frequently took advantage of these 15-minute conversations. He's the one that said, you need to get on such and such calendar so you get some visibility. So I said, well, he gave you the nod. Let's use him as an ally. Go talk to him and ask him what he talking about in them 15-minute meetings. And he like, I'm telling them what I want to do, the next role I want to do, da, 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 da. And she's like, did you know him before? No, I never had an audience with him until that time. And so we talked about, what does it look like to be multicultural in a way that maybe you step into member object here and there when it is, and you get to pick the line, right? You get to pick when this feels using, when this feels manipulative, because that's usually the resistance, right? The wanting to respect people, wanting to not feel like you're just out to get. But you get to pick the line. And in this context that you're in, you need to step into that member object. You're going to ask for some more money. You need to step into that member object because you ain't got time to be bestie. So I love this concept of there is a difference, right? And we could just call a thing a thing. There is a difference on how we're perceiving, how we're engaging. But if you go back to those stats, Daphne, you shared, we got to level set some kind of way, and we get to choose the boundary, right? This doesn't mean that if you are consistently in an environment where you feel tolerated, that you need to, I'm going to still go and network. Sometimes you may choose to go somewhere else. That's fine. But we need some strategies. We definitely need some strategies here. Let me ask you this question, and then maybe we can get to a couple of tactical things. What's the connection with confidence here? Right? Is because there's these, I want to be clear, right? There are some things that are systemic, right? It is
Mhm.
a environmental thing that very well might be increasing your discomfort in these places. So you ain't crazy. We saying you
Mhm,
ain't
mhm.
crazy. But is there a confidence factor you've seen in your work with leaders here with regard to expanding the network? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, I think the confidence piece sometimes comes from not knowing what it is that you want when it
Mm,
comes to that member object piece. If you like, you need a job, you need to be trying to network and make an ask
yeah,
for a chat after the event or about their company, in addition to having it be like a give and take conversation. But I think sometimes there's hesitation over, I don't even know what my intention is for why I'm here. Sometimes it's fear of rejection, right? That's not allowing them to be able to be confident in that conversation, and other things that might come up.
yeah,
Maybe I'm not ready for the role, but confidence equals vulnerability and trust and vulnerability is what creates connection with individuals where they
yeah,
say, you know what, not only do I understand who you are and why you're qualified, but I'm willing to put my name on the line to tell
yeah,
you to bring you into my company. So send
yeah,
me, your resume or whatever it is. I also saw research that said that women tend to be more relational when they're interacting with each other and networking and kind of talk about the different personal things,
yeah,
whereas men tend to ask for what they want.
yeah,
And so I think the things that I shared before, like that fear, that hesitation, how will they think of me? We don't even know each other. What if
yeah,
this is the wrong person to ask? All those questions. I think the confidence piece allows you to ask those questions anyway.
yeah,
It allows
yeah,
you to show up as the best version of yourself so that you're making a certain kind of impression that that person can remember in a conversation. It builds
yeah,
trust. But most importantly, people are clear on who you are and what it is that you desire from that connection. So confidence, I think, is super important in
yeah,
networking.
yeah, yeah. And I usually delineate, right, confidence from self-esteem. Self-esteem is about a
Mhm.
measure of self-worth, self-love. Confidence is about your self-efficacy and your ability to, your skills, your receipts, your I've done that before, so I know that I can do it again. So you got some receipts from something, right, that you can
Yeah.
bring up even internally in the moment. As we're talking about some of these things that might be obstacles right now, what about our introverts? Can we holler at the introverts for a minute? The people that's like, oh my God, I gotta go people, I gotta go people. Well, we using people
Mhm.
as a verb there, right? What
Yes.
what tips do you have for our introverts and how they can kind of prepare their mind? What kind of self care stuff they need to do around when they got to get out and people, and that takes a lot of energy from them.
Yes, I believe I'm an ambivert, so sometimes I
Okay.
just wanna go read a book and hike up a mountain by myself, and then other times I'm like, "Hey, everybody, how
Yeah,
y'all doing?"
yeah,
So, a few different things for introverts. One, have time alone after an event or a meeting or whatever big interactions that you're doing with other individuals that are strategic networking. So that might mean spending a little bit more money and having your own hotel room
mhm,
at a training or a conference. Or that could be just if you're married, talking to your husband and saying, "Hey, when I come back from this event, would it be okay for us to not, not have our evening chat that we usually have together?"
yeah, yeah,
So I can just have some downtime. But I think that's one is planning some downtime after, before the event, is setting an intention for, what it is that you want to accomplish when you're there. You may need a goal like, I want to talk to 3 people and have conversations, or I will not get on my phone. I will not check my email
yeah,
during the event, because maybe that's your way of kind of going inwards.
yeah,
And I think it's also using your introvert superpower, which is people watching, analyzing, reflecting. As people are talking, pull from what you're seeing from
yeah,
them. What is it that they like? How are they showing up? How are they responding to the different things that you're sharing? You can reflect on those things and then use those things to be able to form more of a connection with
That's
other
powerful.
individuals.
Yeah.
So I think using your superpowers too, thinking to yourself, what are my superpowers as an introvert? And how can I utilize that in this networking conversation to make sure maybe the person who's not speaking in a group of three, that
Yeah.
I ask them a question so that they can feel pulled in, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is that you identify as your superpower.
Oh, I love that. Like introverts, y'all got some magic up in here to bring, right? Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm thinking of a really funny story. I remember in one of our masterminds, one year, one of our Black women leading her organization was hosting this major conference for their industry. It was like a 3-day, 4-day thing. She was one of the key organizers. So she wasn't necessarily speaking all the time, but she was, facilitating, managing, organizing behind the scenes. And she was talking about how she really wanted to increase her visibility because some of their key industry players and key kind of supporters would be there, but she was worried that she would just be wore out from day in day out. And I remember in one of the sessions we literally were like, pull up the agenda. Okay, when do you need to be on? Can you steal away and go get a 30-minute nap right there? And it was like so tactical because she was worried that just her battery would just go out. And she was able to, like, okay, right before lunch, I can go get like 20 minutes to myself in my room. And then before the evening cocktail hour, and she had this tactical strategy and she was able to show up fresh for everything, but
Mm.
she needed that 20, that 30 minutes, that power nap in the afternoon before the panel and all this kind of stuff. So I love this tactical thinking. We can really get in the weeds and think about how you can take care of yourself.
Yes, and I also think you can do that even in the middle of an event.
Yeah.
Anybody who's listening to this, you may have been at an event where you're talking to somebody for an hour and
Yeah.
you're introverted. Go get a drink, go use the restroom,
Yeah.
go do something for a little bit of time, and then you could
Yes.
always come back, right? And then there's a way to gracefully interrupt as well. So this is something that I've shared in certain trainings that I've done, but you can say that person's name, repeat their point, and make your transition. If you
Mm.
like, is one like for people who need like structured templates, like um, uh, Lisa, that is an interesting point what you said about that. I'm seeing the same thing too. But Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and just take a little bio break real quick, and I'll be right back. Or I'm going to go ahead and get a drink, and I'll be right back. Or I'm going to go
Yeah.
ahead and get a drink, and then there's somebody else I need to just check in with before the end of the event. And then you go take your little break before you talk to someone else, or before
Yeah.
you come back to talking to Lisa.
Yeah.
But there's a way to take breaks even within the conversation.
Yeah. 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 That's good. That's good. Y'all didn't know y'all was gonna be getting some strategy up in here. Okay. Um, two things I want to just ask about the strategy thing, right? There's a high level kind of before you go, and you talked a little bit to some of that with the introvert of like, okay, I'm gonna set my goal for my 3 people. What I usually do as a entrepreneur, and a lot of the spaces I'm in are either for collaboration or for clients. I usually set a walkaway thing. When I leave here, I at least want 2 calls, follow up calls with people who could be prospective clients, or I want a collaboration call or something. And so that allows me going in to be laser focused and actually really meaningful about how I'm connecting and who I'm connecting with. So that's kind of one of my tips. Do you have any kind of before you go in kind of tips that might be helpful? And we're talking, you all, we're talking around events, but as Daphne has hinted to throughout, this could be useful within your organization, within, you know what I mean? So it's not just a quote unquote event, but just giving some different context.
Yes, yes. You're right. There's so many different contexts
Yeah.
that incorporate what networking looks like, where it can be really, really effective for you, especially if you're strategically networking. So a few tips. One, so the clients that I work with, some have had salary increases as high as 105%. One had 105% salary increase. One had
Wow.
100% salary increase. And those increases were actually from conversations
Mm.
with individuals internally within their company that allowed them to move multiple bands up. And in those conversations, one of the things that they shared was their achievements. So with a lot of the clients that I work with, the leadership development one-on-one clients, they one challenge they have is, how do you speak about your achievements and or your scope, right? The difference between saying, oh, somebody says, what do you do? I basically run operations for the company, versus, well, I run operations for our 48 offices that we have throughout the United States and the Caribbean.
Yeah.
That's different.
That's
So
different.
before you go to the event, because a lot of people, I have to like ask a lot of questions to pull those achievements or their scope from them. You may want to review some points on your resume.
Yeah.
You may have a document that has Danielle Leslie Course from Scratch. She calls it your culture ad. So you may have some pieces of who you are and your story that you want to incorporate when you're speaking to people that you need to study if you don't have that down already
Yeah.
ingrained in you. For when people do say, well, what do you do? Or where do you see yourself going, 5 years from now? Or what do you like about your job? Or tell me more about the work that you do. You need to have ready some achievements that you have ingrained, that you can say whenever the opportunity comes, especially if you're going to be repeating it a lot during the event. So that's
Yeah.
one thing, study your achievements. And I think another thing is really studying this event. So who will be speaking at the event? What kinds of individuals may be present? Is there a list that you can study,
Yeah.
a LinkedIn invitation list or some public registration list or calendar invite, where
Yeah.
you can kind of identify some of the people who will be at the event, Eventbrite, whatever it is. And if you can identify that, maybe research a few folks
Yeah.
that you can follow up with. And that's even if it's a virtual event, you could be seeing a whole bunch of people on the screen
Yeah.
and saying, I like the way this person speaks, right? I like the way this person has showed up. If you've already researched prior to the event, then you already know who you can connect with, even at that event, in a private chat or in a breakout room if you get
Yeah.
in the breakout room with that individual too. So those are two that I'll give: researching the individuals who might be at the event or presenting at the event that you might connect with and have a one-on-one chat after, and then also studying your own achievements prior to the event. So if you have an opportunity to share them, you can share them well.
Yeah, that's good. One little tip that's coming to mind that I want to talk a little bit more about the online networking. I had a business coach that was a middle-aged white man. He helped me grow my business significantly. We worked together for over a year. There was a couple other entrepreneurs involved in that. And he used to have this really funny way of saying, he would say, I need you to pull a bill on them, Laura. And so a bill is like his middle-aged white man approach. So he would say all the time, he's a middle-aged white man, right? He said all the time when we're out, and it goes to that confidence, the entitlement really is what he was talking about. He said we could be talking to somebody and we'll be like, hey, let's go ahead and get that on a time on the calendar for us to follow up on how we're going to work together. Very forward. And when I tell you I have used that, it's still some nuance to it because it can't come out of the blue. But like when people are talking about something, I'm like, oh, wow, we do a lot of work with organizations like that too. And you do a little bit of small talk, and I have done the bill and it works, where I'm like, you know what? We need to just get something on the calendar. Should I reach out to your secretary or your admin or your whatever so we can get some on the calendar? And they're like, sure, because we're laughing and talking. So pull a bill on them, y'all. Here and there, if the timing is right, you just assume that we need to be working together and we need to follow up with the call. And I would say I probably have used that. Maybe I worked with him in 2021. I probably have used that about 6 or 7 times since. And it did result in like 4, I would say 4 of those 6, it resulted in a call. And part of it that it didn't result in a call because some of them didn't do their own scheduling. So it fell apart with the, just the logistical and all that. But pull a bill, y'all. Pull a bill. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the online networking, right? Because a lot more people are doing the virtual events, the virtual conferences and things of the sort. What are some of the nuance there that's important of how we, you're not just standing talking with somebody at the bar with a cocktail or whatever the setup is. What's some nuance you can share with us for that?
Yes. Ooh. So, with virtual, I'm gonna share the one of my favorite tips first, and it has to do
Okay.
with what you just shared,
Okay.
which is take advantage of taking conversations to one-on-one conversations virtually
Yep.
from a breakout room or a full conference.
Yep.
Two of my biggest contracts came from I was in a breakout room or I was in a big, 100 people on the training.
Mm-hmm.
In the breakout room, someone spoke and it resonated with me. And in the big training, someone spoke that resonated with me. I did a one on one conversation, let's say with the breakout room person, one on one conversation, connected with her on LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
during the conference, after the breakout room, said, what you said really resonated with
Yep.
me. Loved having you in the breakout room. Would love to chat with you to learn more about what you're doing, to share more about what I do. We had one 30-minute conversation. By the next 30-minute conversation, she had given me a $12,000 contract.
Wow.
After that, I've gotten probably 30,000 ish or something dollars in contract from this person that I was bold enough to send a LinkedIn request.
Yep.
We didn't even talk directly in this breakout room, but I sent her a LinkedIn connection request, asked to meet up, and then I had the opportunity to show who I was and also learn more about who she was. And then with the big room, again, there may have been 100 people in there.
Yeah.
And this one person spoke, and it just resonated with me. Something I just want to put a pin on is the values, right? So
Yeah.
when I say it resonated with me, the way this person moved, their values, their
Yeah.
character, in addition to who they were as a professional, resonated. Connected, followed up maybe like 2 times in 1 year. The next year, that person reached out to me and said, I have this contract. I'm not able to do it. Do you want it?
Yeah.
I will say it was over 30,000. I'm not gonna say it about, but it's over $30,000
Yeah.
contract that I was able to get from, again, just same thing, LinkedIn connection
Yeah.
request, message, 30-minute conversation, maybe 2 or 3 times, and then big
Yeah.
contract. So the commonality was I was in a breakout room or in a full room with
Yeah.
this individual virtually, connected with them on LinkedIn, took it to a one-on-one meeting, and then develop rapport using some of the things that we talked about earlier in
Yeah.
this conversation, right?
Yeah.
Being able to speak to my achievements. The last person who gave me that big contract, she said, I remember you shared that in your business, you work on this, this, and this.
Wow.
Is that right? And I'm like, oh, because I've been working. Try to practice what I preach. So I had been working on messaging like, okay,
Okay.
Daphne,
Yes.
how do I clearly communicate what I do, the topics that I work on the
Yes.
most? And she called it out, and that's what the contract is about.
Wow.
So I was able to
Wow.
do that. So take conversations to one-on-one. Two, watch how you're showing up. So in a one-on-one or one in small group of people
Yeah.
networking, even internally within your company, you're around the people in your group. There may be other people who are watching you peripherally, but in a virtual webinar, virtual training with colleagues, whatever it is, people are seeing, is your camera on? If that's the culture of your company where the cameras are on,
Yeah.
right? If your camera is on, what are your facial expressions? How are you showing up? How are you conducting yourself? I did a training with for one of the certifications that I just got, and one person said, you know what, Daphne, when you show up, whenever you speak, what I get from you is, she basically said, like, energy
Yeah.
finds. So she feels for me. And she's like, I want more of that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know anyone was looking at me. But that's how the virtual world is. They are watching you. You
Yes.
can't even see them watch you because of the screen. But someone might actually be looking at how you're speaking, or how are you conducting yourself, or your posture, you looking like you're
Yeah.
engaged, or not all that kind of stuff. Not to say you need to have put a whole bunch of pressure on yourself,
Yeah.
but what I am saying is do try to show up as your best self, whatever that
Yeah.
looks like when you're on video. And then I would say, lastly, and I used to say this even when I was an undergrad, I'm gonna say two different things. When I was an undergrad, one of the things that I did was, uh, after an event like a conference, I would go up and speak to the presenter and ask them if I could follow up with them after. This is before I really knew what networking was.
Yeah.
And when I did follow up with them, they would say 10, 15 people said that they were going to talk to me after. You're the only one who reached out. So
Wow. The
if you do
follow
that,
up, the follow
yeah,
through.
if you did, so if you're going to tell somebody, I'm definitely connecting with you after in the chat, whatever it is, connect with them. And then two, the thing that I used to tell people in undergrad when I was mentoring a number of people was, when you speak, make sure you are making an impression.
Yeah.
So, if at a conference, if you would like to be connected to a number of people, then when you speak, if volunteer to ask a question,
Yeah.
volunteer to answer a
Yeah.
question. When you speak, know that you're making an impression. You are embodying who you are as a professional,
Yeah.
right? So do volunteer to do that kind of stuff, which requires confidence, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then when you do, be intentional around the kind of impression that you may want to make and how you're asking that question. So those are just a few tips
Yeah,
for the
that's
retreat.
good. I heard the prep before. I heard the what you doing in it. The follow up, y'all, and the follow through is so key. I've also done that where I've seen someone talk. I will my This is my normal strategy in alignment with what you're talking about, Daphne. Like if we were on a big virtual and they said something powerful or whatever the case, I would send them a direct message if that's possible, if you on like the Zoom or the Teams, and say, really love what you had to share. Would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Here's my link, right? You still can go search them if they never click your
Mhm.
link. Here's my link. 9 times out of 10, they respond back and say, great, here's mine. Then I go immediately and connect. But there's been that connection from that online experience right here if they don't go to LinkedIn until later. So they remember, oh, yeah, that was the lady who said she was going to connect, and then do the follow up to schedule the call or drop your calendar link, that kind of thing. So that follow up
Mhm.
and follow through is important. I have also met people at events that I have done several kind of check ins with. And like you were talking about your example, the output or like the contract or the collaboration sometimes didn't come to 9 months, a year later. So sometimes, especially if you have a very pointed goal, you need to have a nurture strategy too. If you
Mhm.
connect with people on LinkedIn, engage with their content, right? And that doesn't, a nurture strategy don't mean be a pest, right? That's not like, hey, can we get together? You know, because then people will be like blocked because you work at my nerves. But connect with you on LinkedIn, sent that message. Maybe I dropped my calendar link, and maybe they didn't respond. I'm going to engage with the content. You post something. Oh, this was a great share. Thanks so much. Da 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 da. And I have had people come back to that
Mm.
LinkedIn message after I may have engaged with their content, because it brought me back to, oh yeah, I did want to connect with her.
Mhm.
She had sent me a message like a month ago. I never responded, and then they go back. So some of it is a follow up strategy too. Okay, I could talk to you about this all day, Daphne, but we got to. I want to move on to our core questions, y'all. If you're really feeling this, this is just a sneak peek, okay, of what Daphne's going to bring at the retreat. You need to come on and join us, honey. Is there anything else, just top of mind before we start to bring this particular topic to a close, that you want to share? Maybe somebody is like, oh yeah, I'm going to turn up the heat on this. First steps for them, or just any insights that you think would be good to leave people with.
Sure. So, I'm going to share some stats and I'm going to share a good next
Yeah.
step. So, over 70%, and some sources say 90% of new roles are attained through networking, according to a number of different resources.
Yeah.
And then over 70% of job positions are not even posted. And I think that was Forbes, right? So, what that means is that there are positions out there that you may not know about, including internally within your company. And if you are to be able to cultivate new relationships, cultivate your current relationships as well, those opportunities may be more available to you. And then there was stats that said, I think it's like around 90% of senior leaders within companies attribute where they are as a leader to networking.
Mm.
And over 70%, I think, of entrepreneurs attribute new revenue into some form of networking
Yeah.
as well. So I want to just drive the point home that it's important
It's
to be able
important.
to
It's
strategically
important.
network for all of us, no matter, if you are more entrepreneurial or if you are a career professional, 100%, or a little bit of both, maybe entrepreneurial, that networking is extremely important. So as one next step, I think that it's doing an audit on your current network.
Mm.
So I have like a spreadsheet that I created even for myself. And it has in it, I call it a people matrix. And I have clients who I've shared this with too. But it has, who are my advisors,
Yeah.
experts in a certain topic where I can reach out to them anytime and they'll help me with that. Who
Yeah.
are my mentors who maybe are giving encouragement and advice on a regular basis in general? Who are my thought partners, colleagues? I would consider Laura's like a whole bunch of stuff, but to me, thought definitely thought partner as well. Like, Laura, I've been thinking about this stuff, personally or professionally. So who are your thought partners? Because you shouldn't be keeping stuff in your mind.
Yeah.
If something happened, you had that 15-minute meeting, for example, with a manager, with a senior VP, you need to, in my opinion, get out of your head. If you're in your head about it, talk to somebody who could be like, okay, well, so tell me what your intention is, or
Yeah.
ask those kind of
Yeah.
questions. So thought partners. And then I think even just those, right? Advisors, mentors, thought partners. Oh, I would say maybe even connectors. So
Yeah.
like bridges of influence, whatever you want to call them. But people who tend to, be sponsors, right? So, or sponsor. Who are your sponsors
Yeah.
who in the past, they have helped you tangibly and practically with new opportunities, or with expanding your awareness of grant opportunities or whatever it is that would be helpful for you in a tangible way?
Yeah.
List those folks out and then figure out what is your next touch base with each one of them. Or is it as needed? Maybe you're not going to touch base with them, but I would advise or I would recommend,
Yeah.
even if it's every 5 years, that you know when you're going to touch base with these people because they're a key part of your network that you can cultivate. And if you want to take it up a notch, you can say, is there anyone else? Like, I'm trying to expand my network and
Yeah.
develop more XYZ. Is there anyone you think I should talk to? So you'll cultivate your current networks with that approach, and you can also cultivate new networks. So
Yeah.
that would be my nugget.
That's a piece of meat. That's not a nugget. Okay.
Good. Very good. Very good.
No, I love it. And the main thing that I'm taking away from this conversation is when we add strategic to it, it's really about the intentionality, right? It's really about, and it goes back to that earlier point you made, Daphne, of being clear on what you want, what you're going after right now in this season. What's the priority? That's a starting point, getting with you first. And once you have that clarity, you can really build a strategy around your networking, around your relationship building. And it's an intentionality to it, some consistency, and some follow through. I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. Okay. So since I got you here, I just need to take a couple of minutes and I want to transition to our core questions. And so our season 7 theme is about driving the narrative of your career, which this topic, of course, fits very nicely in. And with you being a Black woman leading and a great mentor and model for us, I want to just hear from you. If you could just share an example or a situation where you kind of set a vision for your career or for your professional development and that you were able to pursue it. So you got clear what it is that I want and need. And then you were able to go after that thing. I think as people hear examples of that, it can be really inspiring for them.
Sure. I will share, even as an entrepreneur, something that was a goal for me and how I ended up going after that. So I was switching from only providing one-on-one coaching to clients to doing more work in corporate and
Mm-hmm.
trying to have more executive coaching clients and also training clients. And so before I met that woman and told her the different things that I work on when it comes to corporate clients, not only was I doing that work of identifying what that was specifically. So even if you're a career professional, that translates to what is it that you want, right, in this next season of your professional
Mm-hmm.
career. But I was trying to figure out how to say it. How do I
Yeah.
communicate that well? Then I thought of a number of people that I could reach out to understand more insights into what that next season might look like. So I tapped back into my old, I went to University of Pennsylvania for grad school, tapped back into some people there who are
Yeah.
working in a number of different corporate roles. I tapped back into some colleagues that I thought might have some good insights about approaches, about opportunities.
Yeah.
So even as I was talking to this woman in that that it was a training that both of us were in the same role, but I decided to reach out to her. Um, I was doing that work of telling my network what it is that I wanted and also getting advice
Yeah.
for what that path might look like. From those conversations, I also got one of my biggest contracts with a motion picture company and doing a
Wow.
program evaluating the program that they have for rising talent and coaching a number of their rising leaders. Another contract with doing trainings
Wow.
and coaching for another cohort of folks. And I think a number of people who are now watching me in a different way because they know what my intention is for what I'm doing with my business.
Yep.
And so those might result in opportunities in the future too. But it came first, I had to do the clarity piece
Yes.
and what I wanted internally, then how do I communicate it? Then I did like a cultivating my network around this new goal. And then now I had to be ready. When
Had to
people
be
reached out for
ready,
those
baby. Stay
opportunities,
ready. You don't have to get ready.
I had to be
Okay.
ready. I had to send them. I had stuff to send them. I had all kind of presentations I was working on. And everything was ready
Yeah.
so that when the opportunity came, I could take advantage of the opportunity.
Okay. Last one I'm gonna ask you. Tell me about a time when you had to advocate for yourself in the interest of your goals or the things you were trying to achieve professionally.
Sure. So I had a position where I had a feeling, I discerned that in this position, I needed to share what I was doing in terms of my achievements beyond my current department.
Mm,
So I, even though I didn't directly advocate for an opportunity in this case, I directly advocated for who I was
yeah.
as a professional to the entire company. This is across multiple states, beyond my local department.
Yeah.
I wrote my achievements in a way that wasn't salesy, but like, hey, just accomplished this. So glad I just developed a partnership with so and so.
Yeah.
Really excited that we were able to be featured in this specific media, over and over and over again. So what ended up happening was my whole department was let go,
Yeah.
except for me.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
the only person that was kept by my manager's manager. And her reasoning was because of the achievements that I had had in my role. That
Wow.
if I had not decided that I was going to share more widely the way that I was accomplishing different things within my organization, I would have not had a position because nobody
Wow.
would have known the things that
Exactly.
I was producing. So, in a way, I indirectly was advocating for please know my colleagues
Yeah.
that I'm doing good work in my role. And that if there are ever opportunities that arise that would be a good fit for me based on my qualifications, please let me know. So
Yeah.
that was an example that it had a practical impact on my whole life
Yeah.
on being able to really be confident about me and my achievements.
I love it. This has been so good, Daphne, just from the stories to the tactical tips and all of that. Love it, love it, love it. Daphne, how can people connect with you outside of the podcast and anything you got going on you want them to know?
Sure, they can connect on LinkedIn, LinkedIn/IN/Daphne Valcin, and my website, valcinstrategicsolutions.com. And what do I have going on? I just wrote a book last year.
Yes, you
Mhm.
did. Get
Yes,
it.
I did.
Get it.
Laura was one of my thought partners. She gave me some advice. About the cover. Thank you, Laura. But it's called Becoming the Ripple, and it's about growing your influence for your career success.
Yeah.
And so if you'd like to check that book out, you can. The audiobook should actually be coming out too,
How
probably
exciting.
in a few weeks from when this podcast comes out. So, but they can contact me on my website or on LinkedIn.
I love it. And we'll put all those links in the chat. Well, thank you all so much for listening with us today. You can connect with us on all platforms at Black Woman Leading. You can also visit our website at blackwomanleading.com to learn about our programs and events. You can connect with me personally at Laura E. Knights. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And you can learn about our work we do in corporations to help them build conscious, competent, and confident leaders at knightsconsultinggroup.com. We love to connect with you in any of these ways. And until next time, be well.